Missing in Mesa Verde, 411, or circumstances that are very unfortunate, or all the above. Hey everybody, Rex Bear, how the heck are you? So yesterday I went out and did some recon. It's a couple hours from my house, and after I read the news and the initial reports of there was a search and rescue team sent out to look for this gentleman, and they searched for about 10 days, and then a year later they find him in an area that they previously searched. Now, they did use cadaver dogs, and I'm looking to see if they used these dogs previously in the search and rescue. Most likely they did. I might have read something, I might have not read something the right way, but it appears that they're telling us now it was these cadaver dogs, nanu, that actually found him. So let me share with you the information. Hope your day's going fantastic. We actually had some snow here recently, and I was about ready to go sledding, but most of it's melted. So check this out. Very interesting. Can you let me know that my face isn't being covered by the screen here, because we had a problem with that just recently. But this is directly from nps.gov, Mesa Verde National Park. Beautiful park, by the way. If you ever get a chance to go out there, the trails are pretty cool. There's not a lot of trails, but the trails that are there are nice. If you like to ride your bike, it's a great place to go biking, and it's a great place to explore. It's a pretty good sized national park, not a whole lot of visitors. When I was out there yesterday, it was in the 30s, so low 40s and overcast. Not many people were out there, which gave me a chance to get some nice video footage without people in the background. So it's covered. Okay, let's try this. How's that? Is that better? Are we good there? And the sound is no good. So the sound's no good? We got no sound? Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Audio check. Audio check. Audio's okay? Okay. All right. Well, let's go then. So, and I just uploaded the high definition video without commentary on Patreon. So if you want to see some of our field trips on Patreon in high definition without the additional commentary, exclusive stuff, we've got that over there. But Mesa Verde National Park, Colorado, on Friday, February 28th, the National Park Service Rangers located the remains of Thomas Irwin of Indianapolis, Indiana. Irwin was last seen January 15th, 2024, while hiking the Petroglyph Point Trail. On January 16th, his family contacted the park and a search and rescue operation began. Now, this is back in 2024 when the search and rescue operation began. After an extensive initial 10-day effort, searchers were unable to locate Irwin. Now, if they had dogs at the time, a friend of mine said that some of these dogs can actually smell blood 3 feet underground. So that's one hell of a sense of smell. Over the last year, park officials continued the search, leading to Friday's discovery of Irwin. Using a human remains detection canine, he was located within the original search area during an off-trail search. So that's what made me do a double take and really want to go out there and do more research for myself. He was located within the original search area during an off-trail grid search. A year later, over a year later. And then there's a quote, we sincerely appreciate and recognize the dedication of the Mesa Verde Resource and Visitor Protection Team and other park staff who continue the search for Mr. Irwin, said Mesa Verde Superintendent Casey Cook. We are glad this provides some closure for his family. This is Mesa Verde. Mesa Verde, it's surrounded by Southern Ute Indian Reservation. It's surrounded by some large ranches and farms. It's not a real extreme area. I would actually say it's semi-mellow, being out here in the more mountainous regions of southern Colorado. But beautiful area, very open, very expansive. And so this is, if you go to the nps.gov, you can see a map. The location that I went to yesterday is right down here. It's called the Petroglyph Trail. So the Petroglyph Point Trail. You park down by the spruce tree house. There's a museum out there that you park, and then the trail itself is 2.4 miles round trip. There's decent elevation gain. It does have what I refer to as some single track sections that you got to be a little bit nimble and move around in. But most people with fairly good health should be able to do it. And if you want a little bit more information about this recent case, so the remains of 73-year-old Indianapolis, and this is from people.com, Indianapolis man who went missing more than a year ago while hiking in Colorado's Mesa Verde National Park has been located. The news release was March 4th, so just a few days ago. According to park officials, Irwin was last seen on the 15th of January, 2024, while hiking the Petroglyph Point Trail. His family contacted the park the following day, and a search and rescue operation commenced. However, searchers were unable to locate Irwin after 10 days. So that's a pretty extensive search. And if you talk to people that know about these search teams or have been a part of these search teams, they're very thorough. And the area itself, yes, you do have some drop-offs around the trail that go down several hundred feet. But the way that you can actually see down into the valley, I'm going to show you the video footage. So in just a minute, we're going to look at it. And you tell me what you think. But there's places that the rangers and tourists and people that are hiking the area can see down into the canyon. There's the Petroglyph Trail that you take that takes you to this really cool panel and through some really neat geology. And yes, somebody could easily, if they weren't paying attention, the weather was extreme, they broke their ankles, something happens, yes, they could fall down the canyon. But you should most likely be able to detect that with the search and rescue team, even with just people out there hiking. Because you're looking down and you can see it's not like out in the Northwest that's covered in trees so thick it's, Bigfoot could be hiding behind trees and you wouldn't even know it. I'm using that sarcastically. But out in areas like this, you can see the open terrain. You've got trees, but it's not real thick. The agency added that the search for the missing 73-year-old man continued throughout the past year. Park officials later discovered the remains in the original search area using a human remains detection canine during an off-trail grid search. Okay, so I want to talk about something here for a minute. Now, this is where it gets, hey, right on. We got Alien Allen in the house, James, Maria, Jace, DC, Ray, Exxon, Go-Kart Bob. Good to see everybody. Rebel Rose, Ragnaroff, everybody. Remember the film Cabin in the Woods? So this came out in 2011. And when I was watching the film, at first I was like, oh, this is going to be another one of those stupid slasher films like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. And Nightmare on Elm Street's okay, 30 freaking years ago, but just not my thing. Well, 2011, I'm watching the film, and then towards the end of the film, I'm like, holy shit, this is pretty awesome. And I don't want to give too much away if you haven't seen it, if you want to go watch, but let me just give you the basic story. There are secret agencies that are connected to this little cabin in the woods where, I don't remember if it was once a year, but every once in a while there had to be this sacrifice made to these massive giant monsters. And so you would have these circumstances where, these people would go out into the woods like, oh, look, here's our cabin. Let's have some fun. They got their dates with them. They got some drinks and everything else. And then all of a sudden the carnage begins. But when you start to see these secret service agencies, type agencies in the film, like these organizations that are very highly organized that orchestrate these events, if these sacrifices aren't met, then the monsters will basically eat the world, destroy the world. It's like that bad. So if you watch that film and then you read about some of these bizarre stories, which are just so weird, we're going to talk about it in a minute, I'm like, I need to go watch that film Cabin in the Woods again. What are they telling us? So anyway, Cabin in the Woods, You should definitely watch it if you haven't seen it. Very peculiar, very weird, bizarre film, not what you expect. And then go check out some of these missing 411 cases. So this term was popularized by David Paulides, and he refers to unexplained disappearances in national parks, forests, rural areas under mysterious circumstances. While each case has unique elements, there are several commonalities across many of these disappearances. You have geographic clusters, oftentimes specific areas like Yosemite National Park, the Great Smoky Mountains, and the Rocky Mountains. David has identified clusters of missing persons across the U.S. and even internationally. Now, these parks are extreme, and you have a lot of people going to these parks that probably shouldn't be doing the kind of hiking that they're doing. And then you have people that think they can do anything, and they don't go prepared, and they slip, they break an ankle, something happens, wild animals, and then there's, bad people in places like that too, I'm sure, that could jump out and do something. Anyway, and it talks, we'll get into that in a minute. So there's a lot of different scenarios. But these sudden disappearances where people vanish without a trace in locations where they were just seen moments before, that's kind of weird. Often there's no signs of struggle or evidence of an attack. Then it goes on to talk about unusual weather events. So many cases occur just before or after severe weather. So then you could say, well, yeah, duh, then that would make sense why somebody goes missing, because they weren't prepared. They got hit with extreme weather. But then this is where it gets interesting, is the canine tracking failures. Search and rescue dogs often can't pick up a scent, or they lose the trail suddenly. Some dogs refuse to track at all, behaving strangely. Now, if you've ever seen any espionage shows or films, there's like different materials and different chemicals and different substances that could be used to create a scenario where a dog would not want to go search, because it would hurt the animal's scent. It would hurt its nose. And then some of these cases where people are found in impossible locations, miles away from where they vanished, areas nearly inaccessible due to rough terrain, rivers, mountains, bodies sometimes discovered in locations that had previously been searched multiple times. That's where it's weird, right? And then clothing and shoes removed. Many victims are found missing shoes or clothing despite being in harsh environments. Clothing is often found neatly folded or in an area where the person could not have reasonably traveled. Now, I remember one time I was actually doing a live stream off of the river in Durango. What's the name of that river? The Los Animas River. And I was doing a live stream. I had my shoes off. I was sitting on a rock, and I was talking about how easy it is for something to happen. As I'm talking, I slipped a little bit, and I almost fell completely submerged in the water. And I'm like, see how easy it is to trip into a river? So when you have cases of people missing by rivers and bodies of water, then, obviously, there's many times a rational explanation. But when you read about the neatly folded clothing, that's weird. And Bigfoot, he may have one hell of a sense of humor if he exists, if they exist. If, that's a big if. Like, talk about evasion at its finest. Yeah, you've got some footage which is pretty speculative, but anyway. And then you've got like the stories where people that swear they've seen them, and then you've got the tracks, and I get it, but you would still think we have some more tangible information. Regardless, I don't see Bigfoot out there in these national parks like, I'm going to pick that one. Yeah. And then a year later, drops him off after he, had him as a barbecue or whatever, and then folds the clothes nice and neat. We're just going to mess with people. It's going to be hilarious. Not buying it. Then you've got time gaps, memory loss. Now, this makes me think of technology and hypnosis and like MK Ultra type techniques, highly refined. Survivors of missing 411 cases sometimes report missing time, confusion, having no memory of what happened. Some cases suggest people were unconscious or disoriented for extended periods. Then it talks about water and boulders. Yeah, could happen near bodies of water. Well, as we just talked about. Also, let's say there is some type of technology that uses specific areas because there's high levels of like quartz crystal, possibly. I've heard of the pink granite connection, and then the water that could be conductive to some type of technology that would allow for an instant capture. Like imagine Star Trek technology where you can just beam in and beam out. Boom, gotcha, they're gone. And then think about this. Well, how would you make sure that somebody didn't get that on film? How would you make sure somebody didn't get that with their phone or their camera? Because national parks typically have tons of tourists. They've all got their cameras out. Then you've got the park rangers. You've got a barrier, basically, a border, which there are not many places to get into a lot of these national parks unless you're going through the gates, the entrances that are there, or you have to go through some backcountry stuff. And then when you get in the park, there's so much surveillance. So if there's some type of technology that allows for these things to show up, get their target, and then disappear instantly, and then a year later drop the remains off close by. Now, I don't know why you would fold the clothes up unless somebody's walking by and they're like, a year later, and they're like, huh, that's odd. There's somebody's clothing and somebody's shoes. I'm just going to walk over and fold it up all nicely for them just in case they come back. Because I want to be a nice guy today. So I'm going to go, it looks like somebody just was there in a hurry and I need to go fold their clothes. Yeah, I'm not buying it. Probably not. Maybe, probably not. So why would that happen? Then imagine the only way to come back. Why would they do that? Unless they wanted to create some type of confusion. Almost. Like, we must confuse them. Silly humans. Or, you know what? Let's confuse them. Because they think Bigfoot did it. I don't know. So weird. So weird. But silence, strange sounds. Some cases describe an eerie silence in the area before the disappearance. Witnesses of survivors sometimes report hearing strange sounds, metallic clicks, voices, or distorted animal noises. Now, I've told you about a friend of mine that has had countless experiences with what he refers to as the Greys, and he's not convinced they're aliens. He's certainly not convinced they're from Zeta Reticuli, and he's told me how they appear and how they disappear. So that type of technology, I don't know, could be something much more, mundane. Did I say that word right? Lack of official answers. Law enforcement and park officials often don't provide explanations or classify the cases as no foul play. National parks do not maintain an official database of missing persons, making tracking these cases difficult. It would be nice to get all the information about what took place for that 10 days during the search, and then what they used for the search, and then why they decided a year later to do this. Were they doing a different search and they found him and his remains? I would really like to know about that, and exactly where they found him. It would be neat to get that information. There's many theories about what causes these strange disappearances: animal attacks, serial killers, human abductions, supernatural or paranormal forces, Bigfoot. Have you seen Harry and the Hendersons? Come on. Come on. Aliens. You're like, we're going to pick that national park. That tourist just drives us nuts. That's the one we want. Did you know that many of these cases, the people that go missing have German ancestry? That's kind of interesting. Government cover-ups, secret underground bases, experiments, natural explanations, hypothermia, disorientation, falling into crevices. Well, could it be, just a question, could it be all of the above? Like, why does it have to be one or the other? I mean, there's so many different possibilities. I would say maybe it's more likely that it's all of the above. Except for, of course, there's no government cover-ups. They would never do that. The government wouldn't. But maybe there could be offshoots like behind the scenes that, anyway, you know how my mind thinks. Don't tell me you haven't thought about it. Cabin in the woods, man. Cabin in the woods. So there's been several recent cases. 2 retired National Park river guides vanish in Yellowstone. They disappeared on a remote lake, Yellowstone National Park. Their canoe was found intact, but no trace of them was recovered. No signs of struggle or predation were noted. And then, man vanishes near Cape Fear River, North Carolina, while fishing near the Cape Fear River. I wonder why they call it Cape Fear River. Did you know that I live just down the street from a canyon, it's a mountain called Devil Mountain, and also Devil Creek, and then we're by Chimney Rock. Like, what? How did they come up with those names? They're like, we're going to call it Devil because we just want to freak you the F out. There's gold in them hills. Let's tell them there's a devil out there and call it Devil Mountain. That way the locals will be scared and we can mine all the gold we want. Missing berry picker in New Hampshire. A woman picking berries in a densely wooded area of New Hampshire vanished without a trace. She was an experienced hiker. No reports of animal attacks. Search dogs could not pick up her scent. Then, a retired Green Beret disappears without a trace, 2024. That was probably some Russian spies. Just joking. A military-trained survival expert vanished while camping in a national park. His gear was left untouched and weather conditions were mild at the time. Man and woman vanishes on a lake found in different states. Couple went missing while kayaking on a lake. The woman's body was found hundreds of miles away in a different state, while the man's body is still missing. Those are from missing411.com. So, theories and updates on missing 411 cases, human trafficking or abduction, serial killers in national parks. I'll bet that makes you want to go to a national park right now, doesn't it? Make sure to take your bear mace with you. Serial killers who used remote areas for abductions and body disposal, like Israel Keys, winterwatch.net. Oh, that sounds like a lovely place to take the family. Government secrecy. FOIA requests for missing person files in national parks are often denied, leading some to believe in cover-ups. Missing411.com. Paranormal theories. Some cases have elements of UFO sightings, cryptid encounters, time anomalies. Those skeptics argue these are distractions from real explanations. Wow. Like, haunted houses have nothing on national parks. You want to have your butt pucker up a little bit when you go somewhere? Go by yourself. Don't take a GPS tracking device with you. Yeah. Then you'll really be freaked out. You'll be like, are they going to get me? Are they going to get me? Because you've heard the stories that if you take a GPS tracking device with you, then they won't get you. Somehow they magically know. They're like, that one has a GPS tracking device. We must not get him. Okay, go get that one right there. That one does not have a GPS tracking device. Okay. What the hell? Maybe there's certain technology that picks up on the technology. I don't know. They're freaking aliens, right? I mean, they could do anything. So that is just so bizarre. So bizarre. And would you like to see, now I'm going to share with you. Makes you think of that song, Man Eater. She's a man eater. How does that song go? From the 80s. They were talking about the national parks. Just joking. The percentages are very, very low. I mean, if you look at the millions of people that visit national parks a year, the numbers are so low compared to the amount of people that visit national parks. It's almost like it didn't even happen. You want to go to a national park? All right. Whew, man, I'm getting spooked out a little bit. So, like, literally, did you just get the chills? Anyway, that's cabin in the woods kind of shit, man. Let's go back to, here's the video. You ready for the video? With commentary. So, I decided to go search surrounding areas before I went to the actual park. Mm-hmm. And this is outside of the park, south of Montrose, I think. You can see it's a real up-and-coming area. It's beautiful out there. Very beautiful. Not a lot of houses, lots of farmland, and some cool trees and cool clouds. And then this shows you where the forest fire basically ended. You can see this area got hit pretty bad with the forest fire. And this is en route to the Mesa Verde National Park. Awesome park. Absolutely gorgeous. And on a day like yesterday, when I went out there, there was hardly anybody there because the weather, it's, you know, high 30s, low 40s. It's pretty chill. A little bit of snow on the ground still. And en route to the Petroglyph Point Trail, which is where this gentleman was said to have been seen last before he went missing, I thought I'd go check out some of the cliff dwellings because this area is filled with really cool structures. Some of them are like 2-3 stories. This one right here is an example, built right into the mountain. You can see they're perched above several hundred feet. Pretty vast, pretty extreme. Beautiful masonry work, and some of the wood is still even there. You can see some of the wood beams, etc. There's dozens of these throughout the park that you'll see. And let's just take a look at this for a minute. You can see it has very similar openings that you'll notice at Chaco Canyon. It could have been not necessarily the same builders, but the same teachings and technologies were most likely used at both places. This isn't far from Chaco Canyon either. Yes, Watkins says, wild animals do not undress and nicely fold your clothes. That's a good point. They don't. They absolutely don't. So what do you think of the footage, though? Not bad, huh? For being several hundred feet away with just a mobile phone. And technology's getting pretty cool. The windows are neat, the way that they almost have a T shape to them. Then you can see throughout on the outskirts, a bunch of other structures are built into the cliffs. In a minute, we're going to get to the Petroglyph Point Trail, which is where Mr. Irwin was seen last. And I'm going to take you on a journey. We're going to do the whole loop. The whole loop took me, with all the filming that I did, and I got at least 10 minutes worth of footage. It took me about an hour and 20 minutes. And most people, it would probably take 2+ hours, 2 to 3 hours. But I wanted to go at my pace, which is a little bit different. This is one of those areas where you can see they built an entire complex under these alcoves. Thank you. I did not see a giant in the Grand Canyon. Shondell's in the house. Hey, brother. How you doing, man? You can see that's at least, I would say, 1,000 feet to the bottom. There's probably a lot more water there. 1,000 or 800 years ago, 600 years ago. I'll bet you that the water flow was much more substantial. You can see some more back there. And these are estimated to be about 800 or so years old, built around the 1200s. Shondell was with me actually when we went out to the Grand Canyon, and I shared with him who I thought I saw inside of a convenience store in Page, Arizona, of all places. I'm like, dude, you're not going to believe who I just saw. And the way that it happened was so cool because we were in the Grand Canyon overlooking the Isis temple at a location which is where allegedly an explorer in the early 1900s found the Kincaid Cave below the rim. We didn't see any cave entrances, but when I saw this lady inside of this gas station, the way that she was walking, she had her hands behind her back, and you could see these tattoos on her wrists, and she was very pretty. She was dressed very just casual. She had shorts on and a shirt. She looked native, like a cross of native and Egyptian. And she had these tattoos that were so perfect. They didn't even look like tattoos. And she made it, she wanted to make me, she made it very clear for me to see her tattoos on her wrists, the way that she walked, like with her hands behind her back. And she walked in a circle. And I'm like, I thought I was going to like basically get down and start bowing. I was like, ISIS? That was so wild the way that it happened. Page, Arizona, of all places. I mean, what in the heck? It was, I haven't shared that publicly until now, but I felt like it was the right time to do it. It was so freaking cool. That's one of the things that I saw that I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It was amazing. It was so cool. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. Remember that, Shondell? That was so cool. This is actually called the Solar Temple or the Sun Temple. I don't even know if they were tattoos. Like, they were, anyway. So, oh, and the tattoos, I didn't tell you what the tattoos were of. One was the Eye of Ra, and the other one was the Eye of Horus on opposite wrists. It was amazing. So cool. So freaking cool. I'm like, yeah. Anyway. Whew, I'm getting excited just thinking about it. So amazing. But isn't this cool? This is the Sun Temple in much love to ISIS. She's the best. So, she'll also kick your ass. So, yeah. Be kind. Rewind. This is the Sun Temple, I think they call it. And it's really neat. Estimated to be about 1,200 years old. Here's another dwelling that I found. You can only hear me in your left ear. Oh, man. Hold on a second. How's that? Can you hear me? Can you hear me better now? And that's the only like I did not see any other tattoos on her. And they were perfect. They were like anyway, so it was pretty cool. All right. Here's some more. This is actually when I start hiking the Petroglyph Trail. Get down a little bit further and we hit the Petroglyph Trail. And then it's a 2.4-mile loop that takes you decent elevation. And it does have some fun single track. I think it'd be fun to go out there with Alien Allen and Diamond. Diamond and I had a very interesting experience at this park once. And he's definitely brought it up. But, you know, speaking of like, don't go off trail. Let's just put it that way. Because they're watching. I mean, you can see on the other side of the trail, you can see up because there's a ranger station up there where they can basically observe people going down into the canyon. And then when you're up on the mesa, you can see the other trail. So it's pretty easy to see vast areas out there, especially if you have the right technologies. Now, if you have a thermal and it's cold, you could pick up body signatures and temperature signatures very easily. Hello. Geology out here is so cool. The way that some of these rocks have weathered and the trees and the contrast, the valley, the canyon. Very nice. Peggy says aliens are in the Bible. Peggy, what if we are the aliens? What if humans are actually the aliens? I mean, think about it. Everything else on Earth is different than us. Animals and nature, the way that they survive, the way that they quickly adapt to their surroundings. One thing cool about us is we can live in extreme heat and extreme cold and different different environments, but we need certain technologies. I think that we were probably placed here. I mean, like, let's put them there and then just see what they do. And then now they can watch Jerry Springer when the political debates happen. It's amazing. But anyway, that's a whole other podcast. Whole other podcast. This reminds me of Jerry Springer. It's because it is. Oh, man. How long do you think it'll take them to mess it up? I'll give them about 6,000 years. Then they'll blow themselves up and then they'll have to redo it all again. They'll try and figure out what happened before. They'll probably blame it on aliens. Well, I guess they can blame it on themselves because they are the aliens. Now, if you watch this over on the Patreon page, this is in high definition, and I don't have this extra commentary, so you can actually just watch the journey, have some really cool native flutes in the background and nice music to add to it. This part here is, you can see where we're climbing up a decent rock cropping area there. Up close to 1,000 feet. I know somebody that has a YouTube channel that would just have a heyday out here. He'd be like, that's a petrified bone. That's a petrified giant body part. No, that is too. The whole thing is they're all petrified giant body parts. Man, it's so funny, the different opinions people have on things. It's kind of fun. Hey, it's America though, right? I mean, if we all had the same opinion, wouldn't that suck? I, for one, embrace differing opinions. These alcoves are just massive. And, if there was more water here back in the day, let's just say 600-800 years ago, vast amounts of water, it would be much easier to get food out there. Well, thank you, Celestial. Much appreciated. Now, that doesn't mean that I can take too much of certain people that have these wild theories like the moon is a giant tendon ball petrified floating in space. But hey, it's, that's a contrast, right? We all got to have contrasts. It's all good. You're great too. So we're getting close. There's also a petroglyph panel out here. Let me show you the petroglyph panel. It's pretty cool. Zoom in on that a little bit. This is neat. You can actually walk right up to one of these little huts. Look at this. Where's the petroglyphs at? Here we go. Here's the petroglyph panel. Max headroom. Some squattermans. Interesting spirals. Look like a mountain lion. Got some hands. That interesting caterpillar looking thing above all of it which I see oftentimes at many of these panels. A lot of very similar iconography that you'll notice on panels throughout the States and even overseas. Quite remarkable. Looks like we've got some mountains in the background there. See that? Just 5 fingers. But this is halfway in. This is 1.2 miles into the trip. And then after this, I hike up to the top there, and then it takes you to loop right back around. So you got this like gnarly hike here. I tried to, well, I did it fast. I basically jogged up the steps. The whole time I was there, I was like, damn, I wish I had my bike, but I didn't bring the bike, and there's still snow on the road, and then it just snowed again. But you hike up to the top here. And then now we're on the top, overlooking the mesa. Oh, yeah, man. Then right here, this is kind of cool. This is on the way back where the loop gets you close to the museum again. There's a few ruins you can see built into the cliffs there. Yeah, that was cool. And then that's it. So see, as I said, this is the part where you start, where you go down, and this is where the museum is and a bunch of rangers are. You've got a lot of eyes looking down into the valley, into the canyon. So he must have been way off trail. Made it back to the truck. Yeah. So that was the journey. And you can watch that over on Patreon. Like I said, the full video, unedited, without the commentary, cool sound and better video. But much appreciated, everybody. What do you think about all of this? Like, what are your thoughts about the weird circumstances? Do you say like all of the above, or you think it's one particular thing? Do you think that the paranormal side of it is just completely out, or the high technology side of it is completely out, and it's most likely explainable and much more mundane? I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'd like to hear what you have to say in the comments section. See you on Patreon. Be excellent to each other and be the change you want to see.